Hello everyone, and welcome to another Bukkit Plugin tutorial. In this tutorial we'll be going over commands. So the first thing we need to do is create a new class to handle the commands. And this can be called anything you'd like. The name I suggest is just the plugin name and then commands. So in this case it would be test plugin commands. But like I said, it can be anything you'd like. So in this new class we need to implement a class that's in Bukkit called Command Executor. So we're just going to type implements Command Executor. So what this will do is pretty much make this class, well, able to execute commands. And you can see when we import that, that we get this error here telling us that we need to implement some abstract methods. So I could click this and go ahead and just generate that method, but I'm going to walk you all through each step, like what the arguments are and things like that. So we need to create a method, a public method that returns a boolean, and that's called onCommand, just the way I spelled it there. And let's go ahead and put our brackets and parentheses. So it's going to take 4 arguments. The first one is the actual sender. It's going to be a command sender object with 2 capital letters, just like that. And I'll call this one sender. The next argument will be the actual command, how Bukkit sees it. It's just going to be a normal command object, and I'm just going to call it CMD. The next object will be a string object, and I'm going to call that one command label. And that's going to be what they type to issue the command, the player, what they would type in game to issue the command. And finally we need a string array argument, and I'm just going to call this args, and that's just going to represent the arguments that they use with the command. So if you don't know what an argument is, it's pretty much if you were to type a command such as /test and you typed, say, a number, you hit space and then typed a number, that number would be considered an argument and would actually be put into that array. So let's go ahead and import these objects here. And when you try to import command, the second argument, it'll have 2 different types that are in Bukkit. You want the one that's org.bukkit.command. So of course we get the whole method gets an error after we finish importing, telling us that we're not returning anything, and we want it to return a boolean as we've stated above. So we're going to return a false statement because we're going to create an if statement up here, and if this if statement isn't true, we don't want to do anything, so we want to return false. So we need to check to see if the command that they typed is the command that we want. So the command label, as I said before, represents what they typed after the slash. This does not include the slash because if they type the slash, Bukkit already knows this is going to be a command. So we're going to do if command label, or whatever you named this string object, dot equals ignore case, and that's just so if they type it in caps lock or something, it still recognizes it. And it's going to, that method there, equals ignore case, takes 1 string argument, whatever you want to check for. So for this plugin we will just check for the command test. So let's do if command label dot equals ignore case test, do anything inside here. If it doesn't, return false, because we don't need to do anything. So if they've typed /test, we're going to send them a message. Let's send them a message saying you just sent me a command. So like since I showed you up here, the argument that represents the sender, I named it sender, that's just the person that sent the command. So we're going to do sender dot send message, and if you remember we actually used that same method for a player object in the other tutorials, and we're going to send the message, like I said, saying you just sent me a command. So when they type, just to recap, when they issue a command, it's going to go here, it's going to check to see if they've typed the command /test. Again, you don't want to check for the slash. And if that's true, it's going to send a message saying you just sent me a command. If it doesn't equal, if the command isn't test, then pretty much don't do anything, return false. And just for good measure, let's go ahead and return true if that's what we wanted. So there's one last thing we need to do, and for this we need to go back into our plugin.yml, and we need to actually register these commands. This is actually the second to last thing. There's one more thing we need to do, but I'll show you that in a few minutes. So we're going to type commands, just like we did with all the other fields, name, main, version, author, and description. We're going to type commands. We're going to remember you have to use YML formatting. So it does matter where your spaces are and everything. So after you type commands, press enter, and then 4 spaces. Do not press tab, or you will get an error saying that you have an invalid configuration file. So now we just type one of the commands that we have in our plugin. In our case, we only have one, so we'll just type test and then another colon, push enter again, and we need to do 4 more spaces. If you're not using the Eclipse editor, if it starts back at the beginning of the next line, make sure it's 8 spaces altogether. And then we're going to type description just to tell what it does. So we'll say a test command. So what this description is it will show up if they type /help. It'll say that if they have access to the command /test, which we'll get into permissions in another tutorial. That's how you would limit who has access to it. But if they have access to it, then it will say that it is a test command. I'll show you that in game towards the end of the tutorial. So after we've typed our description here, we need just one more field for this command, and that's going to be usage. And this will show if they use it incorrectly. If we return false, if you remember back here, if it returns false, it will show this. So we'll just do /command, and that's just going to say if they used it wrong, it'll pop up with this line here saying that's how you use it. And the reason we need to register it in our plugin.yml is it's just another configuration that we have to do. If we don't, we'll get an error on the server startup. So you can go ahead and save your plugin.yml. And the last thing we need to do before we can go ahead and package our plugin is go back to our main class with the onEnable method, and we need to use a method that's built into Bukkit to register the command when the server starts up. So pretty much we want to grab that command for our plugin when the server starts up. And so of course we'll do that in our onEnable method. The method is getCommand, and it's going to take a string argument of the command that we want. So again, do not include the slash, or else it would be /test. And then do .set executor, and we're going to do new. For me it will be test plugin commands. And so we're just going to create a new instance of the class we created there to show that's what the class we want to use for the command test. And go ahead and add our semicolon. So our plugin should be good to go, so let's go ahead and save everything, and let's go ahead and export it to see if it works. So export jar file and finish. So let's go ahead and start our server here. Make sure we have no errors. Alright, it says enabling test plugin, so we shouldn't have any errors. So let's go in game here. Just connect to the server real quick. Okay, so let's do /help first, just to show what that usage did. So if we keep going through, let's see if we can find it here. Looks like there's only 2 pages. Let's see right there, it says /test, and then it shows our description that we typed. So let's go ahead and use that command, /test, and we should get that message telling us that we sent a command. And there we go, it tells us you just sent me a command. And of course you could do anything in place of that message. It doesn't have to be sending a message. So I'll go in more in depth probably in another tutorial, but thanks for watching for now, and I hope you enjoyed.